Bros and broettes, fall is here. You can see the leaves changing. It's absolutely beautiful, dude. It's hoodie weather. I got my Monster Bass Grateful Dead hoodie on. Bog is out here hanging out. It's gorgeous, dude. And it is prime time buzzbait season, dude. They're absolutely crushing a buzzbait. But check this out. Buzzbaits aren't your like $1.99 Walmart buzzbaits anymore. There's been, in the past couple years, I would say, a ton of changes and some new sort of like sneak baits that have come out that absolutely crush it and change the game when it comes to your standard little buzzbait fishing. So we're actually going to do a little series of videos. In this one, I'm going to show you some of the new sort of sneaky buzz baits. I got a whole haul from Monster Bass and Tackle Warehouse that I'm going to show you and kind of show you some like tweaks and tricks that I'm doing with them. And then we're actually going to build our own buzz bait in a video down the line. So I hope you guys enjoy this. If you love some buzz bait fishing, if you love freaking braid, hit that like and subscribe button. Let's jump into it.
Where's the boat? That's a good one, dude.
All right, so let's start with a fun one. This one's actually kind of OG, but there wasn't really a buzzbait developed specifically for it until the past couple of years. This is the Scott Canterbury Pro Buzz. This one's from Dirty Jigs. There's a lot of different ones out there. You'll notice right off the bat, there's no skirt on here. It's kind of this weird plug style kind of weight. So a lot of guys have been putting soft plastics on the back of buzzbaits and clipping the skirt off for years. Like I'm gonna actually show you a sneaky trick about that in a minute, but there's never really been a buzzbait developed specifically for it. So most guys are gonna take your favorite kind of toad, your favorite buzzing frog, usually like a Zoom honey toad, these guys. That's kind of your best bet, and you actually thread it up over that weight, and it allows basically the bait to kind of float up a little bit better. It also allows you a new kind of style technique with buzzbaits is skipping a buzzbait under docks, around trees, things along those lines. It gives you a bulkier sort of plane to actually slide that buzzbait on a roll, like an underhand roll cast, and skip it across stuff. Now, one thing I like to do different, this is one of my little sneaky deals. You guys know I love throwing a spunk shed, right? So these guys right here, I'll put them on the back of a chatterbait. I'll use them for forward facing. So another thing that I do with them is I put them on the buzzbait. And this is an example of one that's rigged up. You need a bulkier plastic to actually slide over that weight. But I'll just like thread that thing on, get it up over the nose of that weight. And what I get, you can see it already doing it. It has that dancey tail to it, dude. So as you're reeling it, that buzzbait is kind of shaking a little as you're reeling it. So that tail is just going and just dancing back and forth. The majority of bait that kind of is getting targeted this time of year is shad, so it's a perfect mimic for that, and you can fish it fast, you can skip it. It's a little bit different than most of these guys throwing that buzzing style frog. I showed you this one last year when it was being prototyped. This is the Gambler Ninja Buzz. So this is probably the weirdest one that I'm going to show you. It's the most unique, completely different thing. It does have some shortcomings, but overall, like from a presentation standpoint, it's its own thing, dude. So first off, you have a little hatchet blade right there. It actually creates an extra bubble trail when you're fishing it. And as you can see, it's a jointed or a wobble head style kind of buzz bait. It swings. The hook and the head have a little arm out where it actually swings back and forth. Now, there's an upside to that and there's a downside. So one, you get a very unique bubble trail from this guy. Two, your hookups are awesome. Like, I was dealing with a lot of small fish when they were prototyping this thing, like 10, 12-inch spots, and they would come from the side, they'd come from the back, and with a standard buzzbait, you usually miss those fish. Your hookup ratio with this guy, because of that swinging hook, is absolutely awesome. However, it does get a little annoying to cast sometimes because this guy will roll over or it'll catch your line, and then your cast is blown. So, kind of a bonus and a downside. Definitely has a unique bubble trail, and it's probably one of the most unique buzzbaits that we're going to talk about in this video. This one's not new, but this is one of my favorite like old school ones before they came out with some of these new guys. This is the Booyah Buzz. It's a clacker style bait. You can see the metal flange that comes off of there. If you're looking for a cheap, easy one, that's the way to go. In my Monster Bass box the other month, I actually got another one. This is the Lunker Hunt Turbine, and you can see actually a little bit better how this thing works. So basically, this blade clacks against that metal tab, creating that ticking sound. And it's absolutely awesome. There's sometimes when that is the total deal. They don't really care about the bubble. They want that clackety clack clack clack, and that's when you get out something like this. One of the new ones, and it has the same sort of like concept as these clacker style buzz baits, and a lot of guys are talking about it, is this Buzzbait. This is the dinner bell buzzbait. So this one is a clacker, but it has a different concept. It basically has this little ball right there that it's hitting. So you're getting a deeper sound. It has a lot of rapport. It has a really good drag to it too. You can kind of slow roll it a little more than the clacker because it's actually hitting that ball, and it keeps the bait at a slower pace. You're not burning it nearly as fast. One little sneaky thing that I do with these guys, and I used to do it a ton with the Booyah, is like we talked about where guys putting like soft plastics on these buzzers. So I will cut the skirt off of here, and then what I'll do is kind of go old school with it. I'll grab me some like Kalin's or whatever your favorite grub is, either in a 3-inch or a 4-inch, depending on the hook size. And I'll basically thread that grub on the back of that buzz bait and without any kind of skirt. And I want to use like a clear grub. It's one of the few times that I'll put like a tailed kind of trailer on these buzz baits. It absolutely kills it, dude. It has a super unique like bubble to it, and I personally think with that little tiny bait kind of under there in transparent but still creating more water displacement, it really leads to better hookups at some points, especially in clear water like a Smith Lake or a Spotted Bass Lake with really super clear water. It's a perfect little mimic. You got all this sound and commotion, and then you have this clear little grub, you know, classic old school soft plastic just kind of swimming along under that. Perfect. It's a sneaky little deal, and I especially like to do it with that clacker style buzzbait. So the other clacking one that we're going to talk about is this guy right here. This is the hammerhead. This is the greenfish. There's a lot of different examples. This is another one that I got on my Monster Bass box. So the difference between a hammerhead or a head clacking buzzbait versus a clacker style buzzbait is basically the blade is meant to hit the head, and that's how you get that sound. You can see the blade tips are actually hitting that sort of flat lead head right there. So it gives you a different sound because lead is a little less dense. It's a lower pitch sound. I'm not the biggest fan of these. I like a clacking style buzzbait with that metal tab. These guys, I don't know. They catch like a little bit and they kind of fish a little weird, my personal opinion, but it is another option to get a different style of sound. My absolute favorite. So this one isn't new either, but this is the one that I will fish probably 60-70% of the time unless I'm trying to vary my sound, do something a little different, or if I'm doing some of those soft plastic buzzbait presentations. And I think, you know, the fact that this is probably one of the top selling buzzbaits on Tackle Warehouse speaks for itself. And shout out to Jacob Wheeler. He's the one who put this one together, and it absolutely kills it. This is the Accent buzzbait. Now, this is the micro version. This is the one that I absolutely love to throw. It's a downsized 1/4 ounce buzzbait, and that's something I should note too. The majority of buzzbaits that I'm throwing, I don't throw a 1/2 ounce. I throw a 1/4 ounce and a 3/8 90% of the time. If I need to get some more weight for casts on it, I'll put some kind of soft plastic trailer on it, but I like the lighter buzzbaits. I can fish them fast. I can skip them easier. I can buzz them across the water at a slower pace if I need to because they stay up in the water column better, and I just find that my hookups are better. They're usually a little smaller or shorter style bait as well. This guy though is a beast, dude. I love this thing. It has a very unique sound to it. You'll see I run the gold blade actually when you fish Gunnersville, Wheeler, and these green sort of semi-stained bodies of water. I really like that gold blade both on a spinnerbait as well as a buzzbait. You can see it's got a little smaller hook, and it's just a lighter, smaller, more compact presentation. I absolutely love this thing. If I want to skip it, I'll put that grub on it. I'll put a little kind of like tiny like fluke or a spunk shed on the back as a soft plastic trailer, and I can skip this thing as well. One little trick that I'll tell you, and I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this, if you do leave the skirt on, I leave the band on and I take like a little strip of 50-pound braid and I just wrap it around that skirt. The skirt collars suck, just like the skirt collars on a lot of different baits. So I do that. There's a lot of impact and a lot of pressure that gets applied to these skirts, so wrapping that braid around just saves me from a headache and having to retie a skirt or do something like that throughout the day if that skirt comes off or it starts to separate, because I'm catching so many damn fish, right? But this is one of my favorites. If you're going to try any buzzbait out of this video, this is going to be the one. We're going to wrap up real quick with my buzzbait setup. So I fish a buzzbait, I'd say 90% of the time around tree falls, shallow cover, clumps of grass, not huge like grass mats, but tree falls, heavy cover, and actually open banks like clay banks, rock banks. So it's kind of an open water deal. For that reason, I actually run a little lighter rod. This is the old version of the Halo Rave. This is actually a medium action rod. It has a very parabolic tip to it. I like that soft tip because just like a frog, you kind of have to let the fish pull before you pull back on a buzzbait. Even though you see them go and smash it in that, having that softer tip allows the rod to load up, and all I have to do is pull back. I don't really need to set the hook or anything along those lines. If you're fishing super heavy cover or around super heavy cover, you might want to upgrade to a medium heavy. Some guys do like a heavy with a little more moderate tip. I like this medium because what I do is I put 50-pound braid on it, or 40-pound, depending on how thick the cover is, and I will just bend this rod over and crank it down. Usually when you hook them decent with a buzzbait, they're not coming off, and you can just drag them out of just about whatever. But that's my setup, dude. Those are some of the new kind of like sneakier innovations and sneakier versions of what is like the old school. It's about as old school as a spinnerbait, probably. It probably came out exactly then. You got the old school buzzbait and the old school spinnerbait. But it's an absolute killer, especially right now, dude. In the Southeast, they are chomping on a buzzbait. Having those slightly different ones too will help you to kind of accommodate all the pressure these lakes are getting with all the guys being out fishing. Getting that different sound and that different bubble can make an absolutely huge difference. You can achieve it with the clacker. You can achieve it with different versions of that clacker, like that Buzzbait, or you can add that soft plastic to get kind of a different bubble and a different report to the bait. Give them a try. I'll put links to all this stuff down in the description box for you guys to check out at Tackle Warehouse and Monster Bass. And go slang, boys. We'll see you back out on the water.